Advance Britannia. Long live the cause of freedom.
Two titans, two visions, one fading empire, the other a rising colossus. Winston Churchill, the Lion of Britain, stood for tradition, hierarchy, and the survival of the British Empire. Across the Atlantic, a new superpower, the United States, championed free markets, innovation, and the promise of self-determination. This is the untold story of their ideological clash, a battle not fought on the battlefield, but in the corridors of power, shaping the global order we live in today. To Winston Churchill, the British Empire was more than land. It was a legacy, a force for good in the world, a system that brought civilization, commerce, and stability, or at least, that's how Churchill saw it. Churchill's Imperial Vision wasn't just ideological, it was economic. The colonies provided Britain with raw materials, labor, and vast markets for its goods. Without them, Britain's prosperity and its global dominance would crumble. Take India. To Churchill, it wasn't just the jewel in the crown of the empire. It was an economic powerhouse. British rule meant access to India's cotton, tea, and salt, commodities that fed Britain's industrial revolution.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you following the Indian situation with the attention it demands?
Losing India, Churchill feared, would trigger the collapse of the entire imperial system. But this vision of empire wasn't built to last. Across the globe, colonies were demanding independence.
It is your duty as citizens of the British Empire to form a clear opinion and make up your minds what ought to be done.
And America, with its anti-imperial roots, was ready to help them. On the other side of the Atlantic, a very different vision was taking shape. America had no empire, but its economy was becoming the most powerful force on the planet. During World War II, while Britain struggled to keep its empire afloat, the United States became the arsenal of democracy, producing weapons, supplies, and innovation at an unprecedented scale. In 1941, the U.S. passed the Lend-Lease Act, supplying Britain with tanks, planes, and ammunition.
The British people need tanks and guns and ammunition and supplies of all kinds. From America they will get tanks and guns and ammunition and supplies of all kinds.
Churchill called it the most unsorted act, but there was a catch. The aid deepened Britain's financial dependence on the U.S., a bitter pill for an empire that had once ruled the waves. America didn't want colonies. It wanted open markets. Where Churchill saw the empire as a system of control, the U.S. saw it as a relic, a barrier to the free flow of trade and innovation. In August 1941, Churchill and Roosevelt met to draft the Atlantic Charter, a document that would define the post-war world. But behind closed doors, their visions clashed. One key principle of the Charter was self-determination, the idea that all nations should choose their own path. Roosevelt believed this applied to Britain's colonies. Churchill, on the other hand, argued that the empire was exempt. This ideological rift wasn't just philosophical, it was economic. Roosevelt believed that empires restricted trade, keeping the U.S. locked out of lucrative colonial markets. For America, dismantling the British Empire wasn't just moral, it was good business. By 1945, the war had ended, but Britain was in ruins. Its economy was shattered, its colonies restless, and its empire on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, America emerged as the undisputed economic superpower, holding half of the world's industrial output and most of its gold reserves. The Marshall Plan, America's massive aid program to rebuild Europe, symbolized this shift in power. While Britain received aid, it came with strings attached. U.S. conditions often demanded free trade and the end of imperial trade preferences, accelerating the empire's decline. One by one, Britain's colonies gained independence. India, the crown jewel, broke free in 1947. Churchill's dream of an unbroken empire was over. The clash between Churchill's empire and America's economic dominance offers powerful lessons for today. In many ways, it mirrors the current rivalry between the U.S. and China. Just as America challenged Britain's imperial system, China is now challenging America's economic hegemony. The US, like Churchill's Britain, faces a choice: adapt or risk losing its global influence.
Great power competition is back in the Americas. Our hemisphere has been invaded by China, and they are now the #1 trading partner in the region.
中国愿意同美国做伙伴、做朋友。
But what if Churchill had embraced change? What if he had worked with Roosevelt to dismantle the empire and build a new cooperative economic system? It's tempting to imagine a world where Britain transitions smoothly into a leading partner in the new global economy, leveraging its cultural influence, technological prowess, and historic connections to adapt to the changing tides. Instead, Churchill's reluctance to abandon the imperial system delayed Britain's modernization, leaving the country vulnerable as the US rose to dominate the post-war order. Churchill's steadfast defense of the British Empire came at a cost. Post-war Britain was weighed down by debts, food shortages, and industrial decline. While America invested in innovation and infrastructure, Britain spent its resources maintaining a crumbling empire. This resistance to change slowed the country's recovery and contributed to its diminishing role on the global stage. A decade after World War II, the Suez Crisis exposed Britain's waning influence. When Britain, alongside France, tried to retake the Suez Canal from Egyptian control, the US refused to support the move. Without American backing, the operation failed, signaling the end of Britain's ability to act independently on the world stage. Churchill's Imperial Vision had become a relic, outpaced by America's economic and military power. While Britain struggled to adjust, America thrived. Its vision of free markets and open trade became the foundation of the global economy. Institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, shaped by US ideals, ensured that America's influence would stretch far beyond its borders. This was the fulfillment of Roosevelt's vision, a stark contrast to Churchill's dream of empire. At Bretton Woods, the US secured the dollar as the world's reserve currency, effectively cementing its economic dominance. Britain, represented at the conference by economist John Maynard Keynes, pushed for a more balanced system but was overruled by America's overwhelming power. America's economic dominance has since shaped everything from global trade to technological innovation, a legacy that still defines the modern world. Today, the dynamics have shifted again. The US now faces its own challenger: China. Much like the clash between Churchill's Britain and Roosevelt's America, this new rivalry pits two very different visions against one another. China's state-led capitalism echoes Britain's imperial control, where strategic investments secure influence across Africa, Asia, and beyond.
中国愿意同美国做伙伴、做朋友。
Meanwhile, the US continues to champion free trade and open markets, though its commitment to these principles is increasingly questioned. The question is, can the US adapt as Roosevelt once envisioned? Or will it cling to its past dominance, as Churchill's Britain did, only to find itself overtaken? The clash between Churchill's imperialism and Roosevelt's economic vision wasn't just a moment in history, it was the defining battle of a new era. It set the stage for the globalized world we know today, where economic power often outweighs territorial control. Churchill's legacy remains complicated. He is celebrated as a wartime hero but criticized for his resistance to change. Roosevelt's vision, meanwhile, reshaped the global order but came with its own challenges, including the rise of American hegemony. The story of Churchill and America teaches us a vital lesson. Adaptation is the key to survival. The world is constantly changing, and those who cling too tightly to the past risk being left behind. Churchill once said, "To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing." Perhaps his greatest challenge wasn't winning the war, but letting go of the empire. A challenge that nations today must also face as new powers rise and the old order shifts once again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history and economics, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that connect the past to the present. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Churchill's vision was doomed to fail? Or could Britain have adapted to America's dominance? Until next time, stay curious.